paper I'm presenting here is part of my research I'm doing in the institute. It's about national identification system in Nepal. So just to give you background. Okay, so how I became interested in this question is interested that around 2018 I came to know about national identification system. So before that I had no idea. So I became interested how in a way Nepal could have such card in 2018, or why there was such debate, and what are the factors that were pushing this idea in Nepal. And we know that national identification systems are smart cards, or it could be PIN numbers, or it could be password or biometrics. And in the field of national identification, we know about China having second generation cards, India having Aadhaar in 2009, and as I mentioned, Nepal had that in 2018. And Nepal is distributing such cards to residents and citizens. It's also interesting that, so when I look into Nepal's case, I found two interesting factors. One is the involvement of ADB, Asian Development Bank, which funded a project which started national identification system in Nepal, and other is dependence on foreign or French IT company called IDEMIA. So when you look into political economy of national identification or this kind of smart cards, we found two concepts. One is card cartel. Actually, this is David Lowen, who has written a lot about surveillance. He came with idea called card cartel in 2009, in which he tried to understand the growing role of information technology corporation, state actors, and software companies that create an oligopolistic market in the identity sector. So he was thinking in terms of when it became digital. Earlier, when it was paper, it's that it has the government has sovereignty over these old mechanisms and systems. But when it became digital, then the role of IT companies become more prominent. And in 2013, David Lowen and Okjun Topok, they revised this concept to understand the in a way the growth of such cards in all over the world, and they account for the activities of government departments, transnational corporations such as Jimalda, which was part of IDEMIA, INSIM, THALES, and intergovernmental organizations like UNDP and IMF, and Smart Card Alliance, which is in a way a kind of interest group of smart cards, which educate governments and everybody in the global south and global north as well. And in this article, they highlighted the involvement of known actors in planning, policy, and implementation of national identification systems. And one of the important questions they raised was how and why do certain corporations become dominant in the market? And they also suggested to conduct country-specific case studies focusing the activities of these companies to understand the political economy of ID card system. So that's what I've tried to do here. So as I mentioned, so I will bring the ideas of role of Asian Development Bank and French ID company IDEMIA. So in the field of political economy of ID card, there's another concept which is very popular. It's called digital capitalism, which was started kind of by Daniel Stiller in 1996 to account for the privatization of internet, the increasing use of internet in production processes, and the growing of transnational ID corporations. We know that Christian Cruz has expanded this idea to account for many aspects, including accumulation of capital, decision power. It's also interesting that in case of Aadhaar, Justin Hicks has used idea called digital ID capitalism, where this scholar focused on the capital accumulation of private ID companies in case of Aadhaar, using India's stack API collection by these private companies and monetizing it. So as I mentioned in this paper, I'm trying to bring out the role of foreign aid and then role of French IT company. So in the field of this kind of digital identification, these are the organizations which are very popular working. These are World Bank, ADB, and others as well. And one of other organization which is very popular in this field is the World Bank, which has ID4D project, and it is helping different countries in global south, like Rwanda, Zambia, Indonesia, Philippines, Latin America, Pakistan, Maldives, and many other as well. As I mentioned, in case of Nepal, ADB, the role of ADB was very important. So how it got involved in this is very interesting. Actually, in 2008, it provided in a way funding for a project related to IT for development. The main activities related to this project was digitizing government services like driving license, even national identification, and national identification system was a new idea at that time. The project had grants of 31.2 million. Among this, ADB agreed to provide USD 25 million, and government Nepal had to finance USD 6.2 million. So later, even it provided 8 million grants, USD grants, as NID pilot project through which the whole system was made, and even hundred thousands of ID cards were distributed. So here what we can see is a kind of financial dependency in which that we can even doubt that if ADB hadn't supported that, Nepal would not have ID card in 2018. It's also interesting that we can understand the role of ADB in terms of, I believe, the conditioning of the environment. In a way, if you look into history of ID card in the world, it seems that it started in the global north, in Australia, New Zealand, even in France, other places. And there it was huge debate about who is going to finance that. Is the body? Will it be burden for the government? But in this Nepal didn't have to, in a way, have that burden, and that's how it could have such cards in the beginning. And it's also interesting that it was a kind of project, which means that it has a life. It has to start and it has to end. And there was debate in Nepal that if it wasn't completed in the time, it would be the money would go back to the enemy. Now, in the field of these kind of digital identification, there are basically two big IT companies. One is IDEMIA. Actually, on its website it says that it's providing service to governments all over the world. And as I mentioned, so Nepal started to have such card in 2018, and it seems that Nepal is very dependent on this French company in terms of the making of the system itself. It got bidding grants. While there was bidding, it was chosen, and it made system and also still providing cards. And there's a huge debate that Nepal has gone through vendor law, which means Nepal is basically dependent on this IT company, and now it couldn't go from its crosses. There's a huge debate about that. In a way, we can also say that this French company has total control of identification system in Nepal in terms of the system, because it has provided proprietary software to the government, for which government need to pay rent. Just to conclude, so how we can understand digital capitalism in the global south? Here I should also say that by global south, I generally mean in a general way how the activities, role of technology, role of everything is a little bit different in terms of global north. So I know that many scholars don't agree with this term, but it seems that when we think of digital capitalism, we should not only think about these big software companies which is getting data from it, which we can think as data colonialism. So that's why I have tried to understand in the perspective from digital capitalism, the role of foreign aid, which shape the trajectory of the system itself. This is very interesting. As I mentioned, it seems that due to the money provided by ADB, government, it was very easy for government to have such a system without any debate. Actually, I should also tell that when it was distributed in 2018, there wasn't any law about that, and there was huge debate in the parliament that there should be law, otherwise it would be against, it would be illegal. So then government had law. So in case of this French IT company, as I mentioned, it's kind of in the control of it. It's now people are saying that it should go beyond, government should go beyond French company's clause, because the system was made by this, and once there was also a debate that because system was made by French company, so other vendors' cars can't be used. It might not work. We don't know about that. It's also interesting that when we compare with India, or Aadhaar, it seems that there was UDAIA, the organization which made its own software. But because Nepal didn't go to that road. So that's how the digital capitalism is interesting to understand. And here I should mention that as Card Cartel says, it might be wrong to think that these banks and or this French company created trap for the Nepal, not for Nepal. I think it is in a way the collaboration of all interests of even government and foreign IT company and this bank that we can understand digital capitalism in the global south. Thank you. I welcome your questions, comments. Thank you very much.